Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Tony again with Team Sarge Performance, Rods for Vets. I was having an issue with my 1967 wiper switch. It's frozen up solid, could not get it to work. I checked online, the only place I can find that carries one is eBay, and it's used. They don't know if it works. It's just you're getting a switch for about 300 bucks and you got to figure it out. The switch was very common in the day. It probably cost you about 20-30 bucks. However, that's not the case anymore. Now this switch is very similar to your GM switches and your Ford switches back in the 60s and early 70s. They're not exactly the same, but they all have the same concept, pretty much the same housing. And today I'm going to show you how to take yours apart for about $3. You'll be able to rebuild it and get it back on the road. My shaft was completely froze up on mine. The inside was full of crap, so I got it apart here. And bear with me, I'm going to show you how to save a lot of money and rebuild yours successfully. So, as you can see here in front of me, I have the housing. Now I've already taken mine apart and cleaned it up a little bit. Now my shaft, I had to replace a clip on here. And now you can see it spins perfectly. Before, inside the housing, in that hole, it was caked and corroded up severely. So I've replaced that. The other issue I was having, see my contactors here are spring loaded. Now this spring is pretty weak, it's pretty rusted, and the other hole there is another contactor, and the spring was completely disintegrated and destroyed. So what we're going to do here, on my other one, you can see this contactor is completely froze up. The spring does not work. And there's the inside of the housing. I've cleaned it up with some emery cloth so all the contacts can make a connection again. Now if you're wondering what to do for the springs, it's pretty simple. Go somewhere, you can usually find these freebie pins. I'm not going to turn it over because I'm not trying to advertise. But you can find you a cheap freebie pin, open it up, and it will have a spring inside. Now this spring is going to be entirely too long, so when you put it in the housing, you can see it's way too long. Easy fix, just get you some dikes and clip it down a little bit. There we go. So let's put that in the housing. That's perfect. Got it sticking up just a little bit. Now when you take these contactor plates off, you're going to bend them a little bit, so just bend them back over slightly. Excuse me. There you go. Works just perfect. So we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Using a little flathead screwdriver, just going to get behind it here, pop it up, and then pop it up on the other side as well. Look at that sucker. Almost completely toast. So, get my little screwdriver in there, clean it out real good. Want all that old spring out. Get some of my electric clean here. Still a little bitty part, so I'll use the rest of my pen here to try to see if I can work it out. It's not one to come. There we go, I got it here. Okay, so spray some more cleaner in there. Now with this, you want to use electric clean, any brand of electrical cleaner, because it's going to be safe for your electrical components. Now, going back here, let me find the rest of that spring. See how much we got left we can take off. Alright, so it's still a little too long, so we're going to clip it off a little bit more for the other side. There we go. Got it in there, and it sticks up just a hair, which is perfect. Same thing, bend this back a little bit. Voila. Now I have 2 working spring-loaded contacts, just like that. Okay, now we're going to go to the third section here. Same thing, contactor's froze up, so we're going to pop it out. Springs rusted out, completely gone. So then we go to our second pin here, and we'll break it down. If you notice on these contactor plates, they're going to have, one of them's going to have a wider end than the other for the hole. So make sure you get that correctly or it will never clip back in. And there you have it. We have a third functioning contactor plate. All right, now, next thing we're going to do is add a little bit of dielectric grease. This is where your $3 comes in. I know, don't, you know, like, oh, well, you didn't include that electric clean. Yeah, I know. Most people, if you're doing this kind of work, you already have some electrical clean in your garage or your shop. If not, get a can. It's not too expensive, but it's always good to have around. Now, we don't want to overcake these contacts. Just want to kind of protect them and give them lubrication so we don't have the same issue return as quickly in the future. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for my shaft. I want to give it a little bit of lubrication. Yeah, I said it. I'm going to lubricate my shaft. So give it a nice little bit of lubrication in there. Slide it back in. Still spins nicely. Okay, next thing we're going to do is put our plate on here. Now you can see it has a flat spot. Inside the circular hole there, you're just going to line up your flat spot in here. Matter of fact, go ahead and show you that contactor on the back. Now we're going to add a little bit to the back there so it's not rubbing, you know, just plastic on bare metal. Mosquitoes are wild and vicious out here. Now if you look, before I put this in, if you're wondering how to line it up, if you look, you will have 3 indentions in there. One's going to be for off, The next one's going to be for low and then high. Okay, going to add your second one in there, and it's going to ride on that little peg. Just like that. The grease want to stick to my hand. Okay. Then you're also going to have your seal here. And we're going to put that sucker in. Actually, we'll put it in on the other side. On the other side, same thing. I'm going to add a little bit of dielectric grease in there to coat all those terminal connections. And these mosquitoes out here in South Texas are horrendous. There we go. The seal actually has a notch in it, just like your base for your housing. That way, in case you get a little confused, that's how you line it up. Now, if you look here, when I took it apart, I did a little mark on there, and I did a mark on the housing, which is here. Okay, everything seems to be functioning fine. So the next step I'm going to be, so you're going to have little dimples here that are going to be smashed down, and you're going to have to pry those up with a flathead screwdriver. So when you go to put it back together, it's just reverse. Get you a pair of channel locks here, adjust them to the correct size. Kind of smash down those dimples. I don't know if you can see this in the video, but I am swarmed with mosquitoes right now. I've sprayed down with some DEET spray and they just keep coming back. So you can hear it. It spins a lot freely now. And a lot better. So yeah, I'm gonna go give it a test run. Stay with me and I'll be right back.